أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبتا من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه فإذا وجهه يتلاله كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل فقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدني الحسين عليه السلام نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختار الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي أبي وأخي ابني أمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب اللواء قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بذأتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما أكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأما بيده اليمنى إلا السماء وقال اللهم إنا هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آذاهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك عليه وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكة يا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبالها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا رب يتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئ السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة مع صلوات.
صلوات علی محمد وآل محمد. بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد۔ سر عرش معراج کی انتہا پہ، سر عرش معراج کی انتہا پہ نہ پہنچا کوئی بھی سوائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد۔ برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ، برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ علی سو رہے ہیں بجائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد۔ یہ من کن تو مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے، یہ من کن تو مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے، یہ من کن تو مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے، ولائے علی ہے ولائے محمد، یا علی ولائے علی ہے ولائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد۔ ہے پوچھتے نبی پہ بقائے نبوت، ہے پوچھتے نبی پہ بقائے نبوت، ہے پوچھتے نبی پہ بقائے نبوت، وہی آئی سرنا اٹھائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد۔ شب قدر قرآن صامت کی صورت، شب قدر قرآن صامت کی صورت، شب قدر قرآن صامت کی صورت مکمل ہوئی ہے ثنائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد یا علی جو بارہ چراغ امامت ہے روشن جو بارہ چراغ امامت ہے روشن ہے ان سب میں یاسر ضیاء محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, brothers, sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On the joyous occasion of the birth anniversary of our Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and Managing Committee, we wish you all Kushali Mubarak. Surah Fatiha is requested for all the names listed on the screen in Kul Arwahil Mu'mineen wal Mu'minat, Sawab al-Fatiha. Ayat-e Mayyajiban is requested for all the names listed on the screen, and whoever is in need of it here and elsewhere. Let us all recite it together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amman yujibul muztarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul muztarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul muztarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. We still have 3 more events which has been lined up for the Milad-un-Nabi celebration. The Jashan-e-Mawlud, which is going to take place on November 6th, Friday. If you still haven't registered, please do register at www.hic.news/Milad registration. The hole-in-one golf has to be registered where the youth team and the kiddie team have their own event as well. So please, if you haven't registered, please make sure you do register. Now let us invite Saiyid to recite tonight's majlis. Par Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, Salawat.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة بعد الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا والنبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع نفوسنا وطبيب ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين المكرمين الخيرين الفاضلين السيدين الصادقين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لترى بمقدمه الفداء الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before we begin tonight's discussion, we wanted to go through the questions that were left over from the last session on Thursday. There's, I think, 2 Slido questions. So if they can bring that up. Excellent. So I'm going to do the second one first. So the community member asks, Bibi Khadija alayha salam used to be a very successful business person. She gave her wealth after she got married to the Prophet. Does this mean that it is okay for women to get into business until there is a need to protect Walaya? So there's a few different points here. One about the examples that we take from Bibi Khadija alayha salam, and then the other is the duties of women. Right? So we want to separate the two. So Sayyida Bibi Khadija alayha salam, obviously she is one of the greatest women that has been created. She is a role model for women and men as well in terms of how to serve Islam and how to support Walaya. In legal terms though, and it comes to jurisprudence, her living example is not, let's say, it's not a hujjah, it's not an authority. The authorities that we have, that we derive, fiqhi rules and things like that from, are only the 14 ma'asumin. That's it. Even the previous prophets, according to most ulama, they're not to be considered sources of law. Because they came from a time before our current sharia, right? The sharia, the final message of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And as many of you know, each of those previous prophets had their own message, their own sharia, their own way that they had to do things. And it wasn't until the final prophet, right, the khatam, that things were completed and sealed. So we receive the most complete form of revelation from Allah through the prophet. So our example right now starts from that time, from the time of the prophet up until the 12th Imam. So that's where, if you look at the way that legal principle discussions happen, they won't really refer to Bibi Khadija. Now, can she narrate things? Yeah, we can take narrations from her, just like she's any other companion. But her example itself is not, let's say, something that's taken, you don't take legal principles from that. So that brings us now to the second point, right? If just because she did something doesn't mean that tells us halal or haram necessarily. It might be a recommendation, but what we have to keep in mind is that for her, she is representing a certain level of defending walaya at her time and in her position. And this, I think, will lead into the kind of first question that's there as well. So asking whether something is okay or not just because Bibi Khadija did it, it's not really the best way to approach the question. Because there are certain things that only she could have done because she had her wali as the Prophet, right? So her husband is her wali, her imam, and is the Prophet of Islam. So all of these roles are found in, her husband. So this is obviously not going to happen to any of us, right? When it comes to us and how we're serving walaya, or the question that's being asked over here, the first one, is how does the modern woman, or how do modern women play a role in protecting walaya? Well, we have to remember that walaya is a system of hierarchy. That you always have a mawla, and then you have a mawali. You have a master, and then you have a follower, a shia. This is always going to be the case in any situation. So of course, the highest mawla, of course, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? He is the main wali. Al-wali is one of his names, of course, too, right? Then his walaya, he passes down to the various prophets, including the final prophet. Then that walaya continues to the Ahlul Bayt, right? And all the other Aimma, alayhim wassalam. And they also subsequently taught some of their companions. They became ulama and teachers, and they inherited walaya as well. Right? We know from the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajuhu sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ala. And from other Imams that they narrate that the ulama are the ones who are our waratha. They inherit from us. And that's why some ulama say, yes, the righteous ulama, they inherit that system of walaya. That's why when you and I perform taqleed, for example, when we put this burden, quote unquote, on a marja', they have a level of walaya that allows them to do that. There's a reason that they can say that, this is halal, this is haram, this is mustahab, this is makruh. Because they've inherited this walaya from the Ahlul Bayt. In the same way, if we were in front of the Imam and they said, you can't eat this or you can't eat this, we would take that as an authority. Okay, no problem. Right now, since we don't have that direct access, the ulama try to derive these rules, and then they give us, the rulings. When they give us the rulings, it's as if we are following, the system of walaya, right? That's what the ulama do. And then subsequently, the various scholars that are a part of our communities, they act as representatives of the maraji' and the greater body of the hawza and the seminaries and things like that. There's always going to be the system of hierarchy in any situation. And this also now, because they're asking about women. For a woman, in her life, she will always have, or she should always have a wali. So the main thing to ask is, how do I serve that immediate wali that I'm with? So for example, from birth up until a woman is married, who is her first wali? It's going to be her father, right? That's her immediate wali. Maybe the father's not present, so maybe it would be a grandfather, or maybe it would be an older brother, right? So the walaya begins like that. And that's also why, according to most maraji', this wali needs to give permission and sign off on the girl, the woman, to get married, right? He has to make sure, he's there to protect her, to make sure that the person that she's about to marry, they're meant for each other, and it's going to be a proper marriage. So now, once she gets married, what is happening is the walaya is being handed off. You know how I don't know how you really would say it in like Urdu or Gurjati, but in sort of a Western American context, the father is the one that sees off and gives off the bride, right? His daughter. Right? He walks her down the aisle, for example. We don't really have anything like that, right, in our culture. But you see the father walking with the bride, and then what does he do? He passes off his daughter to his future son-in-law. Why? In a sense, it's because the walaya is passing on to somebody else now. And that's why even in the conversation that, a father would have with his soon-to-be son-in-law, do you promise to take care of my daughter? To fulfill her needs, what she, to protect her, to take care of whatever she wants. Are you going to do that or not? Because that was my role. If you're not going to fulfill that, then definitely, I can't let you marry her. Because that new role of walaya is being taken care of by this husband. And then, of course, when they have children, inshallah, then that couple now, the walaya also extends, and now this father, or the husband now becomes a father as well. So walaya is always there in some shape or form. So now in terms of the modern woman playing a role in protecting walaya, well, the first thing to ask is, what are you doing in protecting your father, firstly? If you've if you are married, how are you protecting your husband? Or if he's the father in the house, how are you protecting your father? And I'll give you just some tips because it's a longer discussion. Many individuals, and since it's a woman asking, I'll explain it from the perspective of a wife or a mother. But this would apply to anybody, right? A father and husband as well. When you have an issue in your house with your spouse, right? If a woman has an issue with her husband, what does she go out and do? Is she supposed to go now paint this picture on social media and describe some issues she's going through, to talk to other community members and say, my husband doesn't do this, he treats me like this, etc., etc. Is that the goal? Is our job, if we have a wali that Allah has designated, to go and spread and air this dirty laundry? No. Now, I'm not talking about extreme cases of abuse and things like that. That's a different scenario. But just general issues. He doesn't clean up after himself. He doesn't do the dishes. He's lazy. He's dirty. He's stupid. And sometimes when people get together, they end up being very chatty and they say these kind of things. How often is it that a wife among other women, or even a man among other men, speaks highly and praises and protects the dignity and honor of their spouse? It's usually the other way around. My wife's cooking is horrible, or she does this and that. Or my husband's so dumb and lazy, he doesn't do anything. When in fact, it should be the exact opposite. Now, when it comes to children, the same thing applies. Are we protecting the dignity of our spouses in front of the children, or are we saying, your mother's just like this sometimes. Your father, he's just a messy person. That's just the way he is. We would never say this about Allah in front of our kids or our spouse. We would never say this about our parents, or we shouldn't be at least. If walaya now is continuing with the husband and the father in the household, why aren't we protecting them in that sense? In a very simple way, protecting their honor and dignity. Now, the sort of deeper things that we could probably go into if we had more time would be, how do you encourage and grow your relationship, husband and wife, mother and father? How do you grow your relationship together with the imam at the time? And that's something that families need to sit down and discuss. The father, being the wali, needs to take the initiative and say, you know what, we need to start doing something, and maybe as a family start reciting dua faraj together, or doing this together, reading more about the 12th imam, studying, reading this book, whatever it is. If the husband's not taking this initiative, he's not doing his job as a father and a wali and a husband. Then it's the job of that wife or that mother to come forward and say, look, I married you because you are my wali, because I saw you have those skill sets, you have those qualities and characteristics. I don't see you acting upon it. I want you to do that, so I'm here to encourage you and support you in any way that you ask of me. So keeping some of these things in mind hopefully will help us understand, right? So the other question was, does this mean that it's okay for a woman to get into business until there's a need to protect walaya? Well, that's up for you to ask your wali. If your wali says, yes, you should get into business right now, then okay. If your wali says, no, right now, your job is to be at home and do X, Y, Z, or maybe do this or that in the community, then it's best to try to follow the advices of your wali that Allah has assigned for you. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay. So inshallah now we'll say a few things about the occasion that we are in, and then we'll move on, and we have a quiz to go through tonight as well. So if you can, please log in now so we don't waste too much time as usual, right? And thank you for everybody who logs in early. The code on Slido is HICORL. So log in now so that as soon as we are finished with our discussion, we can open up the quiz and get started right away. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the past month or so now, the last few sessions, we've been focusing on the idea of authenticity, being honest, being truthful. And for the past few sessions, it was specifically, we were talking about one's belief system and how do we have to reassess and analyze and make sure our beliefs are in line and in sync with the truth, with reality. That is one step. One step is to find out what is actually true and then have certainty and believe in it. After that, there's another step. And if you remember a discussion on sidq and being a sadiq, right? After a person finds out what is real and true, the next level, to take it to the next step, is now to express that truth. It's not enough to just believe in something being right or wrong, in something being real, in the truth, but you have to be able to express it as well. And one of the best ways to express it, the most obvious way, is verbally. Right? But there's other ways that we do it as well. Think about it in terms of politics. If right now a person believes that in order to establish truth and what is best for this country, then they're going to vote for a certain candidate, right? Pretty much most people would be either Trump or Biden, right? So what are they going to do is a person might believe that internally, that I believe Trump is the best candidate or I believe Biden's the best candidate. Although most people are not going to put it that way. They'll say, I believe Trump is the, least of two evils or Biden's the least of two evils. Very rarely will you say that they're the better candidate in that sense or the best candidate. So when somebody wants to believe, or they do believe that a certain candidate is worthy of their support, that this is the truth, we should go with them, they're going to be better for America, then what do? They go beyond just believing it. Some people will take it to the next level and start expressing it. You drive past a lot of roads here, you'll see, right? Trump 2020 signs. Because they want to express the fact that they believe this person is best for America. Some people will take it to the next level and they'll put on bumper stickers, right? Trump 2020, Biden 2020. Or even some people will, get masks that support Biden or Trump, or wear a t-shirt. Fact is that they are there, they're saying it loudly, so they want everybody to understand, this is the truth that I believe in, and these are the people that I believe are also on the truth as well. So when they express the truth, it's what's inside that they believe, and who else they believe is connected. I believe in XYZ, and this candidate also believes in XYZ, that's why I'm showing my support for them, and I want to tell the whole world. I want everybody to find out. Whether you can, when you see my front lawn, you'll see who I support. When you look at my car, you see who I support. When you look at my face mask or my t-shirt, whatever, you'll know what my values are to some degree. We have the same thing in Islam, of course. There's things that we have that are our slogans. And it's almost bumper stickers and signage for us as well. It's a mark that we show. It's a brand and a logo that we want to express to other people. When you're with somebody and they begin to start something, if they say out loud, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, automatically look, this person, there's some level of religiosity in them. They have some level of connection to Allah. Because generally people, out loud, they're not going to say Bismillah really, right? And that's one thing that I really found interesting in Iran. Many religious individuals, when you make a sale at a store, when you hand them the money, right before they take it, a lot of them will say out loud, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, before they even grab it. So they'll say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then they take the money. Very, very, interesting thing that many of us, would be good for us to apply as well. I'm not saying go to Walmart and say Bismillah as you're handing in the person $10, right? They might take it the wrong way, but maybe internally you can say it, right? Or if you're shopping at any of these halal places or a place that's Muslim-owned, then you can say that, right? We say Alhamdulillah out loud after something good happens. After somebody passes away, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So we have these signs, these marks, these logos, things that we express that, look, this is a truth that we believe in, and I want everybody else to know and hear. So we talked a little bit about this last night. Now, all of these things are in the Quran, right? To say Bismillah, to say Alhamdulillah, and to say Inna Lillah. They're all in the Quran. Pretty much Allah's telling us, say these things at these various different points in your life. So these are seen as orders, or as commands and advices for you and I as humans. Say this, say this, say this. There's one expression, one phrase, one outpouring of truth and reality that is so precise, so important, that Allah doesn't just advise you and I to say it, but He in fact expresses this as well, and the angels express it as well. Before Allah even tells us to do it, He Himself expresses it, He has the angels express it, and then He says, now you human beings, you have to do it as well. And this is something that all of you should be familiar with, right? This is chapter 33, Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 56, where Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Everybody knows this, especially the Shia, right? There's a few verses that we have memorized, and this is one of them. It says, verily, absolutely, without a doubt, Allah and His angels, yusalluna ala nabi, right? they send salah and salawat on the Prophet. Then after that, he gives a statement of fact that this is what I do, this is what Allah does, and this is what the angels do. Then he says, now that I've told you that what we do, and that I told you what the angels do, now, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, if you're somebody who has iman, if you're a mu'min, if you've got faith, then sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Then you also, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now that's the other, not the problem, but the caveat of this word, right? It's, we have a Shia reflex in us. The minute we hear the word like salawat, then it's like, oh, just to say it anyway, right? Even if it's the topic of discussion, we're just supposed to recite it no matter what. So it's tough to say, because if you don't say it, after the person says the word salawat, you're like, oh, am I supposed to say it or not? Like you feel like a muqassir, right? Like, I should have said it. No, there's something wrong with my iman if I don't say it. But at the same time, you're like, well, this guy's trying to speak. If I keep cutting off his speech, what's going to happen? But if you're going to interrupt somebody's speech, then there's no better way to interrupt it than with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So, if every time that I say the word salawat, if you want to say it out loud, you can go ahead and do so. I won't feel offended. I won't tell you to be quiet, right? I'm not one of those kind of speakers. You can be as loud as you want, interrupt me as much as you want. It's not a big deal for me. I'll just have to cut down the speech as usual, right? What, it's going to make it longer? No. Don't worry. I see you right there. I'll stick to time. Don't worry, inshallah. I'm already running out of time now anyway. So, Allah says, look, I send salawat. The angels, who Allah has created to obey Him, they send salawat. Now I'm telling you, you also send salawat. And then, of course, at the end, وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. And submit to Him absolutely, right? With no hesitation. Now that second part, definitely we won't be able to address tonight, right? Taslim and sending salam. But what's interesting is that part of sending salam or obeying completely, that specifically is a trait of all other prophets and all other, honorable characters, right? In our religious history. So for example, right? Nabi Adam, alayhi salam. Bibi Hawa, alayha salam. So for everybody else, we're used to just saying alayhi salam. For Hadrat Abu Fadl Abdul Abbas, alayhi salam. But when it comes to the Prophet, specifically, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Right? There's something different about his personality. You don't see this idea of a salawat or a salah on any of the other personalities at all. Now, I'm not saying don't say it for everybody else. You can do that. But in terms of the Quran, he's the only one. The Prophet is the only one who's been addressed specifically like this. And on top of that, as we just said, Allah Himself is doing it only for the Prophet. The angels are only doing it for this Nabi. And then He's ordering us and commanding us, not mankind, not the Muslims, but only those who have iman, the mu'mineen only. Then you should also be doing this as well. And of course, the question that is going to come up, and which we're going to address tonight, is what exactly does this mean? What does it mean to send salawat? What does that mean? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala. Like I said, you don't have to second guess yourself, just go ahead and do it, no problem, right? Okay. So, what is the meaning? So let's get into that. Salawat is the plural of salah, right? Many of you probably already knew that. So, now immediately, like, okay, salah is prayer, right? So we pray our 5 daily salah. Or when you make it plural, our 5 daily salawat, right? But we don't say that. The way that we end up using the word, like in our common sort of language, it's a bit different than the actual Arabic, right? Salah, we only normally think about the daily prayers. When we say salawat, we only think about when we, recite a specific thing for the prophets and the imams, for example, right? So salawat is merely the plural of salah. Now, one of the meanings of salah is the daily prayer that we all, inshallah, perform, right? But that's not all. Salah itself means just to simply pray for anything. It can also mean to call someone or something, to try to get somebody or something's attention. Usually when you look at translations, right, of salawat, then it'll usually say, Allah send your blessings upon the Prophet, right? So that's why some people say, yes, salat or salawat is also a blessing. It's a passing on of blessings. I've seen some translators use the word benediction. I don't know what that means. If you know what it means, great for you. I don't know what that means, benediction, right? So it's a specific sort of call, right? When we're saying this salawat, it's not just like any sort of prayer. And that's what we need to figure out what it actually means. Now, normally, you know that I don't like using English words, right? As far as these bad translations. But today, what I want to do just for today is I'm actually going to use one of the words that we do use in English and take it back to its own root. And because that root will actually help us get a better understanding of what the Arabic word salah and salawat mean. So, sometimes in the translations, what you'll see is that, oh Allah, pass and send your salutations, right, upon the Prophet. What's interesting here is the word salah and salawat is very close to the word salute. That's where salutations come from, right? Salutation comes from salute, to salute somebody. So now we're going to go through this idea. What does it mean to salute or to offer or give salutations? Now, salutations is, for a lot of us, very similar to the word benediction. Like, what is this fancy Shakespearean stuff? Like, salutations? Like, that's something you expect like a nerd to say, right? Like, oh, salutations, my dear friends. Like, no, nobody talks like that. In English class, hopefully, many of you have learned that when you're writing a letter, there's two salutations, right? You have your beginning and then your ending salutations. The beginning one is, dear whomever, or to whom it may concern. There's a whole set of rules for how you start off your salutations. And then at the end too, right? You know, sincerely, yours truly, with all my loving heart, or whatever, whoever you're writing it to, right? Or with deepest regrets, right? Depending on who you're talking to or what you're talking about. And what's the point of all this stuff? Now, you could start off your letter or your email, because who writes letters anymore? You could start off your email by just saying, hey, send me a copy of the report, thanks. Yeah, that works, but it's not fully polite. But if you say, oh, my dearest employee, and then you begin to say, if it would trouble you in the least bit and not inconvenience you, I would be most grateful if you could pass on that report, which I'm sure you spent most of your time and effort on. May God have mercy on your soul. With all love that I can possess in my heart, yours truly, whoever, right? The same stuff is being asked for, but with the salutations, the way you open and close it, there's a whole different thing, right? And I could do that in this way well. I can say, Musti, give me some water, man. Like, what's taking so long? That's one way to, no, it's here. This is an example. Or I could say, oh, my dearest Musti, my heart longs for you to... All right, I'll stop with that example. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala It's Milad. I want to have a little fun tonight, right? You can't blame me. Okay. So what is all this salutations is what? It's just being polite, showing respect. And that's what a salute is, right? A salute, and when we think about the word, we think about, military salute, right? It's a sign of, showing respect to either somebody that's equal in your rank, or usually it's for somebody that's higher in rank, right? So they'll come and they'll offer a salute to somebody higher in rank. So the word salute comes from the Latin salutare, salus, or salos, or salutis. Now, obviously, I don't expect any of you to know what that means, but all these words pretty much just mean what we already understand. To be polite, to show respect. What I want to focus on is where all of these words, they have one single root. The root word and for all these Latin words is sol, S-O-L. And another word, salvus. Both of these words mean what? They mean to be whole, to be well kept, to be in harmony, to be in a state of equilibrium, and to be safe and protected. This idea is very close to what our ulama say is the actual meaning of sending salah or salawat on somebody. This idea of, and this is what we've been talking about, of being sadiq, right? Of trying to keep everything in harmony and in sync with what is true. So what is the salah and salawat? It's a way for us to express all of the truth in one statement, but understanding that there's different levels of doing so. So let me give you one level. This level, and the levels are actually described by our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, alayhi salatu was-salam. He says, As-salah min Allah azza wa jal rahmah. He says, okay, well, now let's step back. We know that the Prophet, Allah, He's sending salawat. The angels, they send salawat, and then so do we. It doesn't make sense for all of those to have the same meaning, right? How could Allah's salawat be the same as the angels, which is the same as ours? It's not the same. What does it mean for the, if we're saying it's a sign of respect? For Allah to show respect is the same as the angels showing respect, is the same way that you and I show respect to the Prophet? No, it doesn't make any sense. There's a difference in each of these levels. So, this is what the Imam is addressing. He says, As-salah min Allah azza wa jal rahmah. When Allah sends His salah and salawat on the Prophet, it's a rahmah. وَمِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ تَزْكِيَةً. When it comes from the angels, it's a tazkiyah, it's a purification, right? Tazkiyatun nafs, we know that, purification of the soul. It's a tazkiyah, it's a cleaning and purification. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ دُعَى. And when it comes from us, it's a dua. So usually when we are saying, we say, Allahumma salli ala. We are praying to God. We are asking Him, please send salawat on the Prophet, right? So there's a difference there. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But what exactly does this mean that from Allah, it's a rahmah, it's a mercy. From the angels, it's a tazkiyah and purification. And then from us, it's a dua. Now, the dua part, we can understand that, right? We are asking, oh Allah, please send your blessings, your salawat on the Prophet. Oh, we can understand it from our perspective. But when we're asking Allah to send it down, what does that mean for the Prophet? Isn't the Prophet already a perfect human being? What exactly what are we praying for him? What are we asking for Allah to do to him? He's already the most pure soul, the most perfect human being. What does our du'as, how does that have an effect on the Prophet? Or is there another understanding that we need to have about what this really means? Inshallah, we'll have to discuss that in our next session. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let's go to the quiz, inshallah. And let's see how many of you were paying attention. Yeah, we're going to skip the Q&A for lack of time, and we'll just go straight to the... Yeah, we'll skip the Q&A, we'll go right to the quiz, inshallah. Okay, everybody's here. Thank you so much. Let's just start right away. Hasan, everybody's already logged in. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The verse of Salawat is which verse? Chapter 14, verse 14, chapter 5, verse 14, chapter 33, verse 33, or none of the above? Now, all these numbers, right, are like the Shia numbers, right? So it's tough to say. Looks like about a little bit more than half have already answered. Almost there. I think 3 or 4 people are left. Now, one of the ones that are mentioned here, you should absolutely know. Okay, there we go. None of the above. Ahsan, to 58% of you. This verse is 33:56, right? Verse 56. Now, look, I'm not a stickler for memorizing numbers and things like that, but okay, this is good for just keeping in your mind, right? 33 is what? Innama yuridullah. Ahsan, right? Ayatul Tathir. Thank you. Okay, next question. Let's go. Salawat comes from salah, which means what? Daily prayer, making dua, a mercy and blessing, or all of the above? If I don't see at least 90% of this question, then I don't know what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to... All right, everybody answered very quickly, which means 71%? Come on. Aha, okay. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. Let's go to the next one. 71%. Come on, next one. All right. Salute comes from the Latin sol or salvus, which means to show respect and be polite, being whole, well kept and safe, to raise one's hand to one's head, or all of the above. So this one I can give you some leniency if you don't remember the Latin grammar. That I can be fine with. Hey, we can hear you, by the way. Stop cheating. Media team, specialist. Ay, khuda. So maybe if you were confused, maybe I should explain. So I was asking for sol and salvus, which mean whole, well kept, and safe. The other words that I was talking about, salutore and salutis, those were the ones which were meant to show respect and be polite. And some said all of the above. No, it wasn't all the above. That's all right. Okay, it's going to be... All right, we got one more left. All right. Now, please, at least 99% for this question. The sixth Imam alayhi salam has said that salah from Allah is something, is what blank, from the angels is blank, and from humans is blank. I'm not going to read them out loud, because I just said it like 5 minutes ago. Yeah, we'll see. Allah, please. Allah, please. Shower your mercy and blessings and open the minds and hearts of the mu'mineen who are tuning in and who have hopefully paid attention and weren't on their phones for at least this part. 78%. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Well, what can I say after that? What can I say after that? Okay. Inshallah, it's good for us to have husn al-dhan for other people. I'm not one. I don't have that that in me. Khair. Let's hope this salawat opens their mind. And when I re-ask this in the next session, if anybody gets it wrong, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Bar Muhammad and wa ala Muhammad, salawat. Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad. ऐसी इज़्ज़त आपने पाई के बस या मुहम्मद ऐसी इज़्ज़त आपने पाई के बस या मुहम्मद एक पल में मुस्तफा को अर्श पर बुलवा लिया एक पल में मुस्तफा को अर्श पर बुलवा लिया अपने बंदे की खुदा को ऐसी याद आई कि बस या मुहम्मद गिनते गिनते थक गई तारों की नाजुक उंगलियां गिनते गिनते थक गई تاروں کی نازک انگلیاں مصطفیٰ کے ہے زمیں پہ اتنے شیدائی کہ بس یا محمد میں نے جلتی دھوپ میں جب چھیڑ دی نعت رسول، میں نے جلتی دھوپ میں جب چھیڑ دی نعت رسول، رحمتوں کی ہر طرف ایسی گھٹا چھائی کہ بس یا محمد ایک دن میں لکھنے بیٹھا تھا شب ہجرت کہا، ایک دن میں لکھنے بیٹھا تھا شب ہجرت کہا، کیا کہوں یا رو مجھے بھی ایسی نیند آئی کہ بس یا محمد ان فرشتوں نے ابھی پوچھا ہی کیا تھا اے سروش، ان فرشتوں نے ابھی پوچھا ہی کیا تھا اے سروش، دفتن میں رے سرہانے سے صدا آئی کہ بس یا محمد ایسی عزت آپ نے پائی کہ بس یا محمد محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
افضل السلام محمد وآل محمد. یا راکبا نحو المدینة قاصدا بلغ سلامی للنبی محمد وقل السلام عليك يا علام الهدى احمد يا محمد. افضل السلام محمد وآل محمد. میرے کملی والے کی شان ہی نرالی ہے، میرے کملی والے کی شان ہی نرالی ہے، میرے کملی والے کی شان ہی निराली है, दो जहां के मालिक है, सारा जग सवाली है, मेरे कमली वाले की शान ही निराली है। खुल्द को जिसको कहते हैं, मेरी देखी भाली है, सब्ज सब्ज कुंबद है, और सुनहरी जाली है, सब्ज सब्ज गुंबद है, और सुनहरी जाली है, मेरे कमली वाले की शान ही निराली है। चांद की तरह उनको हम कहे तो मुजरिम है, क्योंकि इनकी चौखट पर, क्योंकि इनकी चौखट पर चांद खुद सवाली है, मेरे कमली वाले की शान ही निराली है। हर तरफ मदीने में भीड़ है फकीरों की, एक देने वाला है, एक देने वाला है, सारा जग सवाली है, मेरे कमली वाले की शान ही निराली है, दो जहां के मालिक है, सारा जग सवाली है। अफज़लुस्सलाम मोहम्मदिन वाले मोहम्मद। साहिबो चंद अशआर छठे इमाम की शान में बाबा से बुलंद नारे सलावत। कसम अल्लाह की ये है अताए जाफरे सादिक, कसम अल्लाह की ये है अताए जाफरे सादिक, कसम अल्लाह की ये है अताए जाफरे सादिक, कहाँ में और कहाँ लोगों सुनाए जाफरे सादिक, कसम अल्लाह की ये है अताए जाफरे सादिक, मेरे बख्शीश की खातिर के दोनों इतना ही काफी, मेरी तुरबत पे लिख देना गदाए जाफरे सादिक, मेरी तुरबत पे लिख देना गदाए जाफरे सादिक, है जितने जाफरी यहाँ पर मैं उन सब से मुखातिब हूँ, तुम्हें دوہرے مبارک ہو کہ آئے جعفر صادق، تمہیں دورے مبارک ہو کہ آئے جعفر صادق. اور وہ محفل نہیں جس میں مولا کائنات کا ذکر نہ ہو. میرے اعمال نامے کی تجھے کیوں فکر ہے واعظ، میرے اعمال جانے اور میرا مشکل خوشا جانے، میرے اعمال جانے اور میرا مشکل خوشا جانے. یہ کہہ کر میں سکون کی نیند سو جاؤں گا تربت میں، میرے اعمال جانے اور میرا مشکل خوشا جانے. افضل السلام محمد وآل محمد. Sahibo, I will request you all to please stand up to pay respect to our Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ya Nabi salam alaykum, Ya Nabi salam alaykum, Ya Rasul salam alaykum, Salawatullah alaykum. حشر میں جب کہ ہو آنا تو ہمیں نہ بھول جانا، ہم کو دوزخ سے بچانا. صلوات اللہ علیکم یا نبی سلام علیکم یا حبیب سلام علیکم یا رسول سلام علیکم. صلوات الہی بیمار داشتے بلا، جو بیمار ہو جل پاوے شفا. الہی برائے امام زمان ہمیں حول معشر سے دے تو امان. قیامت کو معشور رہو والے، اٹھے قبر سے کہے کہ ہم یا علی ہے 5 و 9 مل چہار ذاتان آمد والی زہرا و حسن. شبیر سے لے تا امام زمان، شبیر سے لے تا امام زمان، ایک ایک پہ صدا صلوات پرو صلوات. صلوات و سلام یا امام زمان فرما و ظهور یا امام زمان صلوات محمد و آل محمد صلوات الله.
Dua Faraj. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abaihi في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيك عباس وأختك زينب والكلثوم وبنتك سكينة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان سيدي الأمان 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 وانفنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله فرجا وسخر الله مخرجا وظهورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.